So, using what you know about colour and how artists create focal points and draw your attention to certain features, you're going to use Sonia Delauney as inspiration for an Autodesk Sketchbook piece. So, if we just go to New Sketch and choose a piece of paper. If you want to save the last sketch that was on, save it. If not, discard it. So I'm using my fingers on the touch screen to shrink the page and put it on here. Just make sure that that's straight. Okay, I'm going to use the selection tool with a rectangle to make a space that I'm going to put my picture in, because composition, the picture's layout, is very important. So I'm going to fill that space with a solid colour, and the colour I'm going to choose is going to be a very pale green. So I'm already on a pale green. I'm just going to make it a bit lighter and maybe a bit less saturated, so it's a bit more grey. And I'm going to fill that area with that. You need to make sure you're on the paint bucket so it knows what tool you're working on. Okay, I've filled that area, so I'm now going to deselect. Now that background is on this layer here, so I'm going to add another layer on top, and I'm going to use the shape tools to draw some shapes on top of this. So I'm going to choose a colour that I can see against this green. I'm going to choose this vivid red. I can change this later, so I'm just going to make sure I'm on the circle tool, circle or oval tool. So if you drag, you can draw the size of circle that you want to draw, and then just like before, you can see that's gone on this layer on top now. Just like before, I can fill that with a solid colour. I do have a little bit of an edge here, so I'm just going to click in there too to make sure that the line isn't separate. Okay, so I'm going to add another circle, red circle, but I'm going to put it on another layer. I want to be able to move different things around and to change things on different layers. So I want to be able to isolate different parts of the picture. So I'm putting a small red circle in and I'm going to fill. You can choose what you want to put where and what colour you're using. So I'm adding another layer and I'm going to add this time a rectangle shape, which I'm actually going to change the angle of later. So I'm going to do I didn't switch to a rectangle shape. So I'm going to do a rectangle shape here, and I'm going to use a different colour for this rectangle. So I'm going to use some yellow, and I'm going to fill inside there, and then I'm going to select. Really, I should have changed the colour of my line before I did any drawing. So make sure you do that. And we'll do deselect. So I've just changed the colour and I'm just going to click in those gaps to fill it all in because I had a bit of red left. Okay, so select, deselect. Now, if I go on transform, I can use my fingers to move this shape around my composition. So maybe I might put this shape over here, over half these circles. Now I can crop this afterwards to get rid of the bits of yellow that have gone outside the box. Okay, so I am going to move that beneath that one. So you can move things around to make your image. So I'm now going to get the rectangle tool again, and this time I'm going to draw, I'm going to do it on another layer. So I need to stop doing this actually, don't I? So I need to get another layer. So I'm going to go on top of that. Make sure you use other layers for everything. otherwise you won't be able to change parts of it. So I'm going to draw something that big. Again, let's undo that. I'm just going to change the colour so that I'm working with a different colour. I might go for this vibrant green. So I'm working with this bold colour now, and then I'm going to fill it with the same colour. Okay, so now I can move layers around, see what it looks like underneath. I can also explore transforming it and moving it around, putting it somewhere else in the picture. So I quite like it here. Okay. So if you remember from last week, you can also adjust the intensity of the colour and sort of play around with what you're doing. You might want to do this at the end rather than drawing the image, so that you can just make those adjustments. So I'm going to go back to the top layer and put another layer on, and I'm going to get another circle. I'm going to keep this colour because this is now different from all the colours that are in here already. And I'm going to draw it there. Now it's in a bit of a funny place, so I'm just going to fill it in. And by the way, it will fill in with whatever size line is here. Let me just show you. So if I make this a bigger pen, and then I get the circle tool, then when I draw it, it's going to have a big dimension to it. So you can see that it's much bigger. So you can draw rings that are larger. Now look at how this yellow contrasts against this green compared to the red. And this is making this look more blue, and over here it looks more intensely red. And that's the same colour everywhere. So this is how colours react with each other. So if I now go to transform that, I can put it where I want it to be and say done. I can even, so there's a way of sort of developing work more quickly. If I right click on the layer, I can say duplicate layer, and then I've got two. So you can see that they're separate on there. You can't see them separately in the image because they're directly on top of each other. But I can move this one. So if I click on it and go to transform, you can see that I can pick it up and I can move it around the picture and change the size of it. I actually think it's a bit more oval than I want it to be. So I'm just going to see if I can squish it. No, I'll try on the distortion. So if I pull this in, I can actually make it more round on the distortion. Okay, so now I'm going to try and put it where I want it to go. So just use your touch screen to move it. Now I don't actually like that one is quite oval as well, so I'm also going to distort that one. So use the distortion tool to make that more round, and then I'll put it here. Okay, so I think I will change the colour of this one using HSL, and I think I'm going to make it a bit duller and a bit darker. Oh, I've changed the wrong one. I apologise. Let's go on that one, and we'll do HSL. Didn't realise I was changing that one. Okay, so I'm getting a dull and dark green. So at the moment, I'm creating a focal point with this red because it's really jumping forward in the picture. And then this strong band of yellow is creating a strong contrast. But this yellow is a bit isolated. I think I need to put some yellow over here as well. So I am going to add another rectangle, but I'm going to choose a yellow colour. It doesn't matter what kind of yellow colour just yet, because I can always change it. So I'll go back to the drawing tool, and I'm going to use a yellow shape here. Now, if you have a very big shape of brush, it will give it a curvy edge like it's done here. I don't want that. I want it to be quite sharp at the edge. So I'm just going to move this down to get myself a small line, and then I'm going to redraw. Now this should be more angular now, a little bit more angular. Okay, so I'm going to fill that in. Oh, I've done that wrong because I didn't do it on a separate layer. So I'm just going to do that again and draw myself the shape. So make sure you're always working on separate layers, because then you can change and adjust things however you want to. So I'm going to fill this in. Now I can do things like change the opacity and make this a bit see-through so that I get to see other colours through it and other shapes through it. Then I can also go on transform and turn it around. So I'm trying to now balance the yellow that's in other parts of the picture so that my yellow doesn't look too isolated. I quite like that there. So remember, I'm going to crop this later so that my image is just inside there. I can actually see a bit of an edge here. So I am just going to fill in that gap with the fill bucket while I'm on that layer, so we don't get any edges in there. Okay, so I've balanced the yellow by putting a faded out yellow here, so that this yellow colour is not so different from everything else. Now I can switch these around so that the circle goes back on top. I could also bring this circle back on top if I wanted to. I think I will. I'm going to put it on top of the yellow so that it obscures the back of that. Okay, so keep building up your image like that. There is another tool that you can use which you might like, and if you choose an appropriate colour, I might choose a very dark blue to use this, and then put a line along the edge of here. Again, that's going to be the size of the mark that you've got here. So if I show you, if you want a much bigger line, I'll just do it at the side. Then you bring up the size of the pen. So once you've finished your image, mess around with the hue, saturation, lightness, darkness. Maybe move the layers around. Maybe try and change the opacity. If you like it and you've done all the things that I asked you to do in it, then you need to do menu, share, save to device, and you can put colour exploration or whatever you'd like to call it. Oh, I missed a C out. And then say save, and then it will be there for you to put into your slides.